Every policy that has failed this city and so many others is a policy supported by Hillary Clinton. She is the candidate of the past. Ours is the campaign of the future.
Trump's policies would throw us into a recession, the last thing we need. He would undermine the growth that we've had since the Great Recession.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton talking about the economy today. Donald Trump getting specific in Detroit. A couple of bullet points from his speech. Limit taxes on business income to 15% for every business. Exclude child care expenses from taxation. Renegotiate NAFTA and withdraw from TPP. He's talked a lot about the trade deals. Issue an executive order to impose a regulatory moratorium on new agency regulations. Halt regulations on businesses and end the death tax. Just a few of the bullet points there. And as you take a look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls over the summer, this is the line graph. The red, obviously, Donald Trump. The blue, Hillary Clinton. Right now it's updated since then, but it's roughly 7 points in the average of polls on RCP. But then you can see the fluctuation here, and really the last week or two, how the polls have been shifting. Let's bring in our panel. Charles Hurt, political columnist for The Washington Times. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at Real Clear Politics, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, Charlie, today's economic speech, your thoughts?
This is the Donald Trump that can win in November if he stays focused like this. And I think that doing this particular speech in Detroit was a good play by him. You know, my first job in newspapers was in Detroit, and to this day we still send those internet things around showing pictures of 50 years of Democratic policies versus 50 years of nuclear radiation in places like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And to look at the difference in the two pictures, and you see glittering, beautiful pictures of cityscapes in Hiroshima, and then nothing but despair and poverty and just amazing poverty in Detroit. If he can, I don't think he's going to win over any of those voters in a place like Detroit, which is 97% Democrat, but he's taking that message to those people, and I think that that's a very good thing for Republicans to do.
A.B., does he turn the page? Does he pivot today?
Yeah, this speech wasn't for undecided voters. It was for the Republican Party, and it was, I'm going to talk about policy, and I'm going to look at the teleprompter the whole time, and I'm not going to blow it.
And he was interrupted, we should point out, like 10 times?
Yeah, 14 times, and I think that,
he didn't stick to...
Yeah, so the new low bar is that he didn't freak out when the protesters went after him, but this is what he needed to do. And on a day when someone announced an independent candidacy and you have all these, foreign policy experts denouncing him, it's what he needs to do is get back on a focus that Republicans can believe he can stick with. We don't know if he will, but it was what he had to do today to the party, not so much to the voters.
On the flip side, Hillary Clinton still coming off of this weekend where she's referring back to the Fox News Sunday interview with Chris Wallace. Take a listen, and then Donald Trump's reaction to it.
Director Comey had said that my answers in my FBI interview were truthful. That's really the bottom line here. What I told the FBI, which he said was truthful, is consistent with what I have said publicly. So I may have short-circuited.
Unstable Hillary Clinton, and you saw that. Did you saw that where she basically short-circuited? But I think that the people of this country don't want somebody that's going to short-circuit up here. Hillary Clinton short-circuited again, to use a now famous term.
And Donald Trump hitting it, his campaign hitting it on the web in a new video.
Hope you will compare what I'm proposing to what my opponent is talking about. I'm telling you right now, we are going to raise taxes on the middle class. So I may have short-circuited.
Trying to jump all over the short-circuited.
What I like the best about the slip on the raising taxes? Did you see how the crowd applauded and cheered, raised their sign?
I do think she did say we're not, but it kind of got jumbled in there. But
right.
Anyway.
But candidates often do that. I mean, I've been on here once or twice where you had to correct me, where I referred to the president as Osama, which was not exactly right. So, look, this happens all the time. It's a bit of a cheap shot, but what the hell? There's a lot of cheap shots going on in this election. What she meant by short-circuited is that she was answering a question that was slightly different, and it's not that she had a short circuit up in her neurons. So, look, this is just tit for tat. I thought what was interesting is, number one, she can't escape her lies on emails. There are so many lies now that she lies about her lying, and when you have to say, my testimony to the FBI, which the FBI director says was truthful, when somebody has to cite somebody else as an authority on the truthfulness of their speech, they're in trouble. Trump, I thought, handled today reasonably well. He gave the classic Republican agenda on economics, cut taxes. I think every Republican would agree, but what's really notable is how anti-trade he is, he remains, and he's not going to waver. He's to the left of her on trade, and that leaves us with an election where there's nobody to defend trade. This is new in modern American political history.
Paul Ryan, House Speaker, in a town hall in his own home district, saying we need good trade deals, not bad ones, kind of echoing Trump in some way, shape.
Yeah, people have often used the phrase fair trade, but to come out and say, you know, essentially NAFTA we're going to junk if it's not renegotiated, and we're pulling out of TPP, is fairly radical, and there's nobody essentially on the other side anywhere of any party who's arguing against it.
The Trump campaign sent out a lot of emails today, Charlie, about how this economic speech was a good thing. It's on the same day, though, late in the day, we get this letter from former Republican national security experts, 50 of them. The top Intel national security had Michael Hayden, former director of the CIA and NSA, Michael Chertoff, former Homeland Security Secretary, Tom Ridge, John Negroponte, and 46 others. In it, they say, the undersigned individuals have served in senior national security and or foreign policy positions in these Republican administrations. We know the personal qualities required of a president of the United States. None of us will vote for Donald Trump. We understand that many Americans are profoundly frustrated with the federal government and its inability to solve pressing domestic and international problems. We also know that many have doubts about Hillary Clinton, as do many of us. But Donald Trump is not the answer to America's daunting challenges and to this crucial election. We are convinced that in the Oval Office, he would be the most reckless president in American history. Now, these are not Clinton fans, so they say, but they put out this letter.
Sure. No, and obviously, you know, this is going to be something that Donald Trump is going to have to deal with, you know, through until the election. And the way he does it is by giving speeches about the economy in Detroit and not getting baited into talking to, you know, getting into wars of words with protesters. But to his advantage, he can always, you know, these esteemed people might feel this way about him, but he can always turn to President Obama and Hillary Clinton's foreign policy record and point to things that are concrete examples of her recklessness or bad decisions that they have made together that have made the world less safe.
To that point, just moments ago, Donald Trump putting out a statement. The names on this letter, and he does not call them esteemed, the names on this letter are the ones the American people should look to for answers on why the world is a mess. And we thank them for coming forward so everyone in the country knows who deserves the blame for making the world such a dangerous place. These insiders, along with Hillary Clinton, are the owners of disastrous decisions to invade Iraq, allow Americans to die in Benghazi, and they are the ones who allowed the rise of ISIS. It continues saying he's going to change foreign policy for the better.
Yeah, that is going to be a big problem for her, and I think what it'll focus on the most during the debates is the rise of ISIS in the Obama administration, if she's complicit as Secretary of State the first 4 years. And that's going to be very tough for her to defend. Her record on Libya and Syria and everything else is not a good one. It's not something she really wants to talk about. But this is something that feeds into Clinton's campaign narrative now, which is that you don't even have to think about my policies or his. He's just unfit. He doesn't have the temperament. And so she's going to use people like those listed on that letter in her campaign to argue that point. Don't even worry about trade, not trade, none of this. We're in too fragile a state to have someone unfit take us through the challenges of the next year, let alone 4.
Okay, one more thing before we move on to the next panel about Gitmo and this Iranian scientist. There is another candidate now in the race, an independent. His name is Evan McMullin. He's 40 years old. He's a graduate of BYU. He's a former undercover operations officer for the CIA. He's also a former chief policy director for the House Republican Conference. He served as national security and policy advisor. He resigned from that job this morning. He talked to ABC First moments ago about why he's running.
Do not trust him to make decisions with our military whatsoever, with the lives of the men and women serving in our armed forces and intelligence services. He's already demonstrated that he doesn't respect them or their families. His attacks on our American heroes like the Khan family and like John McCain. This is somebody that we cannot trust the lives of those who are already risking their lives too. He is inhuman. Donald Trump does not care about anyone other than himself.
He is inhuman. That's the opening line for his candidacy about Donald Trump, the independent candidate, Evan McMullin.
I think we would agree that is slightly over the top. He's not running for president. He's running to be what Ralph Nader was to Al Gore in 2000, although he did it inadvertently, which is to siphon off enough conservative, traditional conservative Republicans to cost Trump perhaps a state or two in a close election. It's a way to give an anti-Trump Republican who cannot possibly stomach voting for Hillary a place to go rather than writing in another name. And that's what he's trying to do. He's allowed to do it, but he's not running for president.
Yeah, not a name a lot of people know, but in Utah, who knows? I mean, it's down to single digits in Utah.
And where was this paragon of virtue last, November?